Hello again, everybody. Welcome back. I know it has been a while and that I'm a bit late in getting this 1 year jaw surgery recap video up. I had my jaw surgery in December of 2021 and it is now late January of 2023. So I'm a little over a year and 1 month plus since my jaw surgery, but I actually have tried to film this video 4 other times before and just never quite got it right. So hopefully this one will be the one, and we will talk about where I'm at a little over 1 year since my jaw surgery, everything from the physical aspect, swelling, numbness, range of motion, eating, all of those things, as well as kind of the mental, emotional side of things, how I'm feeling overall about where things are at and this whole process, this whole journey, whether I would do it again, what I have learned throughout this whole process. And we'll be covering all of that today so that if you are maybe considering having this surgery, or perhaps you've already done it, maybe you're in the earlier stages of your recovery, or maybe you're like me, you're closer to the 1 year mark and you're just kind of wondering if anybody else is experiencing some of the same things as you are, or using this to prepare for your own recovery journey and kind of wondering where things might be at once you get to that 1 year mark. Hopefully this can be helpful or useful to other people out there on their own jaw surgery recovery journey. So I think the way that I would kind of sum it up right now is the days are long, but the years are short. I can't remember where I heard that quote, but it seems very relevant, at least for me and my own process with this whole recovery. I sort of can't believe it's been over a year already, and at the same time, it feels like it has been ages since my jaw surgery, and like this recovery process is taking a really long time. So while the days feel really long, it also sort of feels like this whole year has gone by really quickly. And I think the overall theme of this 1 year recovery video is that this process just takes longer than I thought. At least for me, in my own experience, I really thought that by the time I got to 12 months, that this was going to feel kind of like a distant memory, that I was going to feel really well healed and kind of not be thinking about this anymore, that the braces would be done, I'd be all set, like that the jaw surgery was going to be the big part and the hard part, and that beginning piece of the recovery was going to be much more challenging, and that then once I got to a year, it was just going to be like everything is great and I'm moving on. For me personally, that has not really been my experience. I feel like I'm still a little bit in the middle of this process. Maybe not in the middle of it, but like I still have steps in front of me that need to happen, and it's going to be an ongoing process, at least for me, for a while longer before I'm at the point where I feel like I am really recovered or really done with this whole journey. I'm really looking forward to a day, hopefully sometime in the future, where I'm just sort of not thinking about like my jaw, my teeth, my face, orthodontics, eating, all of these things. Like it's not something that is on my mind on a regular basis every day. I'm hoping that time will come when everything feels really normal and natural. I don't know how long that might take, but really hoping that there will be a point in the future where this is just not on my mind anymore and kind of this whole jaw surgery thing is part of the past. So let's talk a little bit about the physical aspect of this 1 year post-op. Where am I at? Obviously the swelling is gone. I know what my face looks like now. There is no outward sign of having had jaw surgery. My function and range of motion is quite good at this point. Things feel pretty symmetrical. I feel like I can talk and eat and sort of move my mouth and jaw pretty naturally. I still have a little bit of like weird sensations or feelings, I would say, like this whole lower part, like I feel it feels kind of tight. Like as I talk, it doesn't feel restricted, but it's just like that sensation is sort of there all the time. It's hard to explain. If you've done it or if you're in this recovery, you might know what I mean, but it's just sort of like I'm very aware of this whole area of my face all the time. My teeth and mouth are not necessarily sore, but again, it's like I can there's just sensation there all the time. And when I am eating, it's not uncomfortable, but it's also not totally normal, I guess. Like it doesn't feel completely comfortable or completely like it did before my surgery. I kind of can feel my teeth, I can feel my mouth. There's maybe a little bit of just like discomfort. It's not really discomfort, it's very hard to explain, but there's just more sensation there than what you would normally have if you had never had surgery like this. I do think that my range of motion in terms of opening has gotten a little bit better since having the plates removed from my lower jaw. I don't know if that is why or if it's just that more time has passed and that would have happened anyway, but I do feel like I have a bit of a wider opening. It's definitely not to the extent of what range of motion I had before surgery, but it feels pretty good and like it's getting better. So I think that, again, potentially over time that can continue to improve, especially if I keep working on it. But even if it doesn't, I feel like I have pretty good range of motion. And like when I go to the dentist or orthodontist, like nobody is concerned with that or is saying like, oh wow, you can't open your mouth very wide, which was definitely the case in the beginning when it was really restricted. So I feel pretty good about that part overall. I do still have some areas of numbness, in particular my upper palate and my top teeth do not have full sensation back. I can feel things, like it's not completely numb, but like for instance, if we were to test a tooth with cold sensation, I don't feel that much on any of my top teeth. So I don't know if that will continue to come back over time gradually. I know that the nerve sensation that can take quite a while and could be maybe closer to 18 months or maybe even longer for some of those things to really regrow and to get that sensation back. So I'm hoping that that will continue to improve. But right now, as of 12, 13 months after my jaw surgery, I do still have some numbness there. And then there's a little bit of like, again, not numbness, but just kind of like that almost tingly sensation when I touch my lower lip or chin. I can feel all of it. It just doesn't feel completely normal. And again, we'll have to just see if that continues to improve with time. One other thing that I have noticed more on the physical side is I still have some pressure and what almost feels like swelling or inflammation kind of in my sinus area. And I know that because that whole upper jaw was really moved forward quite a bit and kind of all the sinuses have to really adjust to that can take a while for everything to kind of integrate and to feel more comfortable. But I'm a little surprised that this far into it, I'm still feeling some of that pressure. And sometimes like if I'm talking for a long time or if I'm outside when it's cold, I get a lot of drainage and a little more of that pressure feeling in my sinuses. I have a little bit of a concern that maybe it has to do with the plates in there because they do go so far up, and whether I might have a little bit of just like a sensitivity to that. I'm not sure, but it has made me question a little bit whether I would want to have those plates removed just because I do still continue to feel some of that pressure. The other kind of interesting thing is like if I wash my face or if I like blow my nose or kind of anything that like rubs the skin around this area, it gets very red right here, along the sides of my nose. Maybe that's nothing, but to me, it's like a little bit of a red flag that maybe there's some irritation from those plates. So while I haven't made any decisions yet, it is on my mind a little bit. Would I like to potentially have those plates removed as well, just as kind of like a precaution or to see if that would help with some of those sensations that I'm still feeling up in my sinuses. One other thing that I was really looking at going into the surgery was for a reduction in head and neck tension. I've kind of had chronic head and neck pain or tension through my whole life, and I started to think that it could at least partly be due to my bite being misaligned and kind of how my jaw was sitting. So that is definitely something that has improved. It has definitely changed and is definitely better since having the surgery. Like it all feels much more comfortable, and I think it just feels like everything sits a little better now that my jaw is in a better position. So that to me is like a positive side effect, knowing that has improved and was something that I was looking for. I also have continued to notice that my sleep is better. Like I sleep longer throughout the night and I wake up far less. Like I used to wake up every night in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. And now like I might wake up, but I just kind of roll over and go back to sleep. So I'm definitely sleeping for longer stretches and less interrupted, which I would guess has to do with the improved airway and just better breathing at night. But whatever it is, that's something that was a noticeable change after the jaw surgery. So that's another positive benefit. So that's kind of the physical side of things. Again, I think I'd expected going into this that by the time I got to 1 year, like all this physical stuff would just be totally healed and I wouldn't be thinking about it anymore. That once I got the braces off, that was going to be like the end of all this, and any discomfort or healing or additional things would just be gone. And now I'm starting to see that there's still some additional steps, at least for me and my own journey with this, that it's not totally finished yet. There might never really be a time where I feel like it's done, or maybe like I don't know what that is necessarily going to look like at this point. And that's just one thing that I think I could have been a little more prepared for, is to just understand that this healing process is really long and that there is the potential for lots of little things to come up along the way that are just unexpected, and everybody's experience is going to be a little different just depending on how their surgery goes, or what little side effects might occur along the way. And it just wasn't something that I had thought about as much, or maybe I just was being optimistic, I don't know, but it has just been a little more of an up and down journey than I thought, and seeing that this process is going to continue on longer, and that it's not just going to be, as soon as you hit the 12-month mark, like everything is done and you're all great. And that transitions us into the mental and emotional side of this whole healing journey at the 1 year mark. And this is something I talked about a bit in my 6-month recap, so I'll try not to repeat everything I said there. But I do think that a big piece of this is being mentally prepared for the ups and downs, kind of the long-term process of all of this, and kind of being able to roll with whatever happens. I think obviously some people are going to have maybe a very simple or easier journey through all of this, and I'm sure some people have a much harder time or many more complications than I've experienced. But just being aware of what those possibilities are and kind of being prepared mentally to maybe deal with some of these things is really key to, I think, not getting sort of frustrated or bummed out along this journey. I think personally, I felt quite mentally prepared for all of this, but again, maybe not as prepared for all the little ups and downs that were going to keep coming my way, and for it to kind of extend on longer than I thought. And I think at this point, I do just feel like a little bit tired of kind of having this healing journey kind of dominate my life, or just having to keep processing through it and thinking about it and kind of planning for these next steps. Right now, it's just feeling like, okay, this has been going on for over a year now, and obviously there was a ton of prep before the surgery. So it just sort of feels like this whole jaw surgery situation has been such a huge part of my life for a really long time now. And as much as it's been really interesting and kind of fascinating and a great learning experience, I do kind of feel like wouldn't be sad if it could go on its way now and kind of leave me alone, maybe. So it's, it is kind of a mental and emotional burden, more than I had expected. And I think just for anybody out there, again, if you're in your recovery process, if you're preparing for this surgery, to just be aware of that and to have tools and support in place to navigate that part of the process will be really, really helpful to getting through this. The other thing that I have noticed at this point in my journey that has come up more for me than it did in the past is having a harder time not dwelling on the what ifs, and just really thinking about how this could have been handled differently when I was a kid, with orthodontics, with my tongue tie, with all of these things. And just, I'm finding it harder not to sometimes get stuck in that wishful thinking mode of like, if only this had happened or if this had been different. And just, I know it's not a helpful way to think, but I think because this healing process has gone on for so long, and because I have continued to kind of navigate some of these ups and downs with it all, it's just been a little more on my mind, or I felt a little more frustrated and honestly just kind of sad that this is where I'm at now, and that I had to pursue this surgery, and now I'm kind of continuing on this path. And I'm so grateful that I'm able to do all these things and that I have access to really good people that have been able to help me, and that I've been able to find ways to fix some of these things that didn't get dealt with previously. But it's just been more challenging to not sometimes get stuck in that thought pattern of what could have been different if something had gone differently when I was younger, and maybe some of this could have been prevented. But that is just a piece of the sort of mental and emotional side of things that I have noticed myself having to navigate more and more lately in the later stages of this recovery. So all that said, it might kind of sound like I am regretting doing this, or like that there are more negatives than positives to doing this. But overall, I still really feel like I would 100% do this again, that the benefits definitely outweigh the negatives, and that some of the, the negatives or the things that are harder to deal with, I do feel like are just kind of part of the process, and they're going to dissipate over time. I don't expect some of the more negative aspects of this to be ongoing forever. And so again, I really feel like the benefits still outweigh any of these harder pieces that have come up along the way. I'm really happy that I have better jaw and bite function. I even went to do a consult with a new dentist the other day and was showing them some of the before pictures, because they had just met me for the first time and they were hearing about my jaw surgery, but they didn't know where I had started with my bite. And they kind of couldn't believe like how big of a change it was from, seeing my before pictures from a couple of years ago and what my bite looked like to what I had now. And it was kind of nice, almost like reassuring in a way, to have them like say what a great result this was and how much of a difference that this must make for me, or just kind of realizing that like I do have much better function, and just having my bite in a more correct place is going to be so good for my overall health, as well as the airway improvement. I know that that is a huge thing, again, just in the long term for sleep, for basically every function in my body, that's going to be really beneficial for me throughout the rest of my life. Also, to have the improvement in my head and neck pain and tension. And even though I still struggle sometimes with the aesthetic piece and kind of being used to what my face looks like now, I do still really like what my after result is. And I'm glad that I had this for aesthetic reasons as well. So overall, it's really, to me, much more of a positive experience. And one thing that kind of comes to mind for me is a quote that my grandpa used to say, which is that whenever you're choosing between two things or trying to make a decision, you're choosing between two sets of problems, and you have to decide which set of problems you would rather have. So sometimes I think about it that way, like even if there are some problems or issues that might come up post jaw surgery, I would much rather choose to deal with those problems than to deal with the problems that I was dealing with before, or could potentially have dealt with down the road if I hadn't done the surgery. So sometimes when I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed or kind of down with how long this process is taking, or just some of the harder parts of it, if I think of it that way, of like, I still would choose to deal with this set of problems that I'm dealing with now than what I was dealing with before. That can be, at least for me, has been a really helpful way to think about it. So to kind of wrap up and summarize, I think again, the key takeaway for me is just that this whole process is longer and maybe a little more complicated and a little more challenging mentally and emotionally than I ever would have expected, or maybe even could have been prepared for. I just think because everybody's process and journey is going to be so different. It's really hard to know how, what you're preparing yourself for. And I think, again, I tend to be pretty optimistic. So I was probably looking at it as like, as long as I can get through the surgery and those first couple months of recovery, then everything's going to be great. And I'm going to be so excited about it all that I'm not going to, care if it's hard. And in reality, there just were some more bumps along the way that I could not have foreseen. And having to kind of deal with those as they came was just a bigger challenge than I was prepared for. And ultimately, what I'm realizing is that it is much more of an ongoing journey, and that learning to kind of embrace the whole process and learn to enjoy the process as much as possible, even when it's hard, and kind of see it as a learning and a growing experience, has been really helpful also to be able to kind of stay optimistic and keep going and not feel like this is dragging me down, or that this whole process is not just a means to an end. There's not just some end point that I'm going to get to and then everything is going to be great. That it's just like anything else in life. It's going to be ongoing, and it's going to be a part of my life probably forever. This is a huge thing to do and a huge change. And even if I do get to some point where it kind of feels more like a distant memory and I'm not thinking about it that much, that this is a big piece of my life and always will be. And just trying to embrace this whole process and keep learning from it and see what happens next. And in terms of what is coming next, I will be meeting with my orthodontist soon to come up with a plan for fixing some of these little things that have come up with my bite in the past couple months since getting my braces off. None of that will actually happen until after I go back to Germany in March to get the permanent crown on my implanted front tooth. So we wanted to wait until that tooth was totally healed before we did any other moving of my teeth, and just to make sure that that tooth was really stable. So I will be going back to Germany the end of February, beginning of March, getting that permanent crown put on. I will also be getting the cavitations in my lower jaw dealt with there, which I am super excited about, really curious to see what I notice after that procedure. And then once I've kind of healed from that and we know that that tooth is stable, then I will be able to go back to my orthodontist, and we'll just be using Invisalign for any future treatment that we need to do. Then, like I said, I'm also sort of considering whether I want to have the rest of the plates removed from my upper jaw. I also do have a plate in my chin, and if I am feeling like those might be causing a little bit of irritation, do I want to take just the inherent risks of having another procedure done to have those removed? So that's a little bit just on my mind right now. I have not made a decision one way or another, but we'll certainly keep you guys posted. And I will also be documenting what happens when I go back to Germany and having those cavitations done. And then obviously we'll be coming back and continuing with orthodontic treatment. As always, I really, really appreciate all of you that have been watching and following along. And thank you for leaving comments and questions and for telling me about your own journey with these jaw surgeries. I really love to hear what everybody else's experiences are like. And it's just always nice to know that there's other people out there that are either dealing with some of these same things or are navigating this whole healing journey as well. So do please keep leaving comments or questions below. I'm happy to answer any questions. And thank you again for all the support. I will keep you guys updated with another video soon. And hopefully it won't be quite so long in between videos this time.